just climbed the roof and I hopped down and went back up. Fuck you mean? Eat it up, little baby. Yeah. My nigga Bob.
This is rapper Trouble in an interview a couple of years before his death, saying something so heavy that it feels like he was writing his own goodbye without knowing it.
Yo, I ain't gonna care. Like, and this the first time I ever even saying this. Only two of my homies even know this. Like, bro, I ain't type nigga like Leo with no regrets in history. I don't give a fuck whatever been done about nothing. I'm gonna keep a G code. I'm always straight on one way. So it's your life. I feel like you supposed to go through shit. Like it is what it is. I ain't no success without no story. So I'm cool with continuing to build my story. So until the big God called me home.
This is Lil Boosie, one of the biggest names in Southern rap, breaking down in front of the whole room at Trouble's funeral just weeks after his death.
I just want to come up here and I ain't get to tell my boy thank you. So I won't tell Trouble thank you. He always supported me, you know. My nigga, you know,
The man arrested in the deadly shooting of Atlanta rapper Trouble will spend years behind bars. He pled guilty today as part of a deal with prosecutors.
Investigators say the rapper died in 2022 from a gunshot wound while trying to break up a fight.
That right there is what a 20-year prison sentence sounds like. 20 years for one bullet, one dead legend, and one messy love situation that a whole hip-hop city is still trying to make sense of. But how did we even get here?
So at approximately 3:20 this morning, Rockdale County deputies responded to a shooting. It was at the Lake St. James apartment complex in Conyers. Upon deputies' arrival, they observed the black male, lying on the ground suffering from a gunshot wound.
Now let me put you on the ground floor of this whole thing before we go any further. To really feel this story, you gotta know who Trouble was to the culture and how he ended up in a bed that would cost him his life. His real name was Mariel Samont Orr, born November 4th, 1987, and raised in the Edgewood neighborhood of East Atlanta.
Take chances to make advances at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? But that should always at the end of the day, at the same time be within how you feel on something. Not with another motherfucker telling you to do it, and then telling you lame the fuck if you don't want to do it. You gotta be like, nigga, fuck you, brother, I'm right.
To the rap world, he was Trouble, and to a smaller circle, he was also called Scoob. He was a southern trap rapper who came up the hard way, self-releasing mixtape after mixtape until the industry finally had to stop looking past him. He started rapping when he was only 14 years old and was already pulling his lyrics straight from the streets he grew up in. He didn't get the name Trouble by accident either. In 2008, right after signing with Duct Tape Entertainment, he caught a home invasion case that came with charges of kidnapping and armed robbery. So he did his time behind it and walked out of that cell on December 17, 2010. That date meant so much to him that he named his breakout project after it, and December 17th dropped in April 2011 with features from Waka Flocka Flame and Alley Boy. That tape landed him at number 23 on Complex's Best Mixtapes list for the year, and that's when the culture really started to pay attention to what he was saying. From there, he ran up a wave of features that showed how much respect he was earning. He got on Killer Mike's rap music album in 2012 alongside Bun B and T.I., and pulled up on Lupe Fiasco's Tetsuo and Youth in 2015. Then, in 2016, his feature on UFN Lucci's Key to the Streets with Migos took off so big that it peaked at number 70 on the Billboard Hot 100 and got certified platinum by the RIIA. That's when the industry locked in on him for real. He signed with Mike Will Made It's Eardrummer Records under Interscope in 2017, and his debut studio album, Edgewood, came out in March of 2018. Every track on the album was produced by Mike Will. The lead single had Drake on it, and the features included The Weeknd, Quavo, Offset, Fet Wap, and Boosie Badass. That's Hall of Fame level respect for a man who came from nothing but block money and grind. His second album, Thug Love, dropped in May 2020 through a joint venture with Def Jam, and that one had Jeezy, 2 Chainz, Boosie Again, and the City Girls on it. Around this same time, he also started his own imprint called MMB. But here's the part that made the people love this man beyond the music. Trouble wasn't just rapping about the streets, he was actually trying to fix them. In 2019, he organized these events called Guns Down, Water Guns Up, which were massive water gun fights held in Atlanta neighborhoods like Perkerson Park.
Handles, gripping them while I grew up getting thug business. Nasty dealer, I love kitchens, fuck kidneys. I've been into my love digging, fuck feelings. You never find them, the gun living.
And the whole point was to bring the community together and pull kids away from real gunplay by giving them something fun to do instead. Hundreds of people showed up, and even the police officers who came out for crowd control ended up getting in the water fights themselves. That's the kind of energy this man brought to his city. And the folks who ran with him from the beginning still talk about how wild his whole spirit was.
What's one of your favorite memories of Scoop?
Trouble?
Yeah.
Everything, bro. Shout a whole vibe, man. Shout a whole vibe, man. I don't give a fuck where he at, when it is. In the hood, shout gonna call 6, 7 bitches up. Pull up, the Hennis out there, he's sitting on top of the car. It's just a vibe all the time, you know what I mean? Club shit, we in that bitch lit. Man, the funny shit to me, man, like just seeing him like in the club. Man, one time we out of town.
That's Alley Boy remembering him, and that shot a whole vibe line pretty much sums up the way Trouble moved through the world. He was loud, loyal, and loved by everybody who knew him. Now let's talk about the woman at the middle of all of this, because you can't understand what happened without is Rissa Royce. And by the summer of 2022, she and Trouble were spending time together. Some reports describe her as his female companion or female friend that night. But before Trouble was ever in her bed, Royce had a whole other life going on with a different man. That man was Jamichael Jones, and he was 33 years old at the time. He and Royce had been dating for about 3 years, and the two of them used to live together in the same apartment at the Lake St. James complex in Conyers, Georgia. His name was still tied to that place, so he knew the layout, the doors, and everything about that home because he had lived inside it himself. But their whole situation had gone bad about a week before June 5th, 2022. According to what Royce told police herself, she and Jones got into an argument about money, and the fight was really about Jones not having a job and being unable to help pay the bills. Things turned physical fast when Jones punched her in the face during that argument. She dialed 911 right after, but by the time officers were ready to take her full statement, Jones had already run off, so she never went through with the police report. That was the last time she had seen him. According to her, Jones hadn't come back to the home in the whole week since that fight, so she figured that chapter of her life was closed. That's why she started spending time with Trouble instead, and had no idea her ex was already planning to come back through that same door. The night of June 5th was supposed to be a regular night. Trouble had been out earlier that evening, and some reports mentioned him leaving a club and pulling up to Royce's apartment in a yellow Lamborghini. He came inside, got in the bed with Royce, and the two of them fell asleep together while Royce's daughter was also inside the apartment. It was around 3:20 in the morning when everything went sideways. Jamichael Jones pulled up to the complex in his car, and the cameras on the property caught him arriving. According to the Rockdale County Sheriff's Department arrest warrant, Jones walked up to the door of the apartment he used to share with Royce and forced his way inside, and deputies later noted that the front door showed clear signs of being forced open. He didn't waste any time either. He went straight to the bedroom, and Royce was still knocked out asleep when Jones started swinging on her. He began punching her in the face, which was the same thing he had done a week earlier during that money argument, and the blows woke her up. That's when Jones saw him. Right there in the bed next to his ex was another man, a man he had never seen before and had no idea was Atlanta rap legend Trouble. Trouble woke up too, and the situation exploded fast. According to police, the two men had never met each other before that moment. A physical fight broke out between them, and during that struggle, Jones reached for his handgun and pulled the trigger. One shot into Trouble's chest was all it took to change everything.
They say the man charged with murder, Jamichael Jones, and his girlfriend of 3 years broke up about a week ago. The woman told deputies that she and Jones previously lived together, but that he left after she says he hit her during an argument. In the warrants, investigators say Jones went to his ex-girlfriend's apartment in Conyers early Sunday morning and forced his way in. That's where he found his ex and Orr asleep in a bed. After allegedly punching her in the face and fighting with Orr, warrants say Jones pulled a gun, shot Orr in the chest, and then left the apartment complex 7 minutes later.
Trouble went down, and Royce's daughter, who had been in the apartment the whole time, picked up the phone and dialed 911. Jones didn't stay to see what he had done. He turned around and ran out of that apartment, jumped back in his car, and left the whole scene behind him. The cameras from the complex would later show that from the moment Jones arrived to the moment he pulled off, only 7 minutes had passed. 7 minutes to break in, beat his ex, kill a rap legend, and disappear into the Georgia night. Deputies from the Rockdale County Sheriff's Department arrived at the Lake St. James Apartments at 50 St. James Drive in Conyers, Georgia, shortly after the call came in, and they found Trouble suffering from a single-shot gunshot wound to the chest. They also recovered a spent .40 caliber shell casing at the scene, and the gun itself was gone because Jones had taken it with him. Paramedics rushed Trouble to a nearby hospital, but the wound was too deep. The bullet had landed right in the middle of his chest, and the hospital couldn't save him. A man who had rapped his way out of prison, dropped 2 studio albums, mentored his city, and turned water gun fights into peace movements, was gone at 34 years old, and the Atlanta hip-hop scene was in complete shock. That pain showed up on full display at his funeral.
I just want to come up here and I ain't get to tell my boy thank you. So I want to tell Trouble thank you. He always supported me, you know. You know, my nigga, you know, and
That's Lil Boozy right there, who had collaborated with Trouble on multiple records, standing in front of everybody and speaking from a broken place. That's how deep this loss cut through the culture. Now let's get into how the police cracked this case wide open, because Rockdale County detectives moved fast, and honestly, they had a lot to work with. Rissa Royce was alive, she was talking, and knew exactly who came through that door. She gave detectives a full statement about her 3-year relationship with Jones, the recent breakup, the earlier incident of physical abuse, and everything that had happened that night, and her daughter was there as a witness too. Then there was the surveillance footage. That 7-minute clip of Jones arriving and leaving in his own vehicle basically gave investigators a confession on camera. So when you add the shell casing, the busted door, and Royce's testimony to all that, the case against him was already airtight before he even got picked up. But Jones didn't stay on the run for long. 2 days later, on June 7, 2022, his own mother stepped up and reached out to law enforcement. She connected them with her son, pushed him to turn himself in, and he surrendered without any incident.
Mother turned the son on to one of my sergeants, who began to talk to him and convince Mr. Jones to turn himself in. His mother was a huge resource in helping us apprehend him. Nobody wakes up in the morning wanting a bad.
That was Rockdale County Sheriff Eric Levitt explaining exactly how they got him in custody. Jones was booked into the Rockdale County Jail on a stack of charges that included felony murder, home invasion, aggravated assault, and battery, and later charging documents added malice murder, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, second-degree criminal damage to property, and family violence simple battery on top of that. A magistrate judge denied him bond, and he sat in that jail waiting for his day in court.
Jamichael Jones. Mr. Jones, you are charged with felony murder, aggravated assault, battery, felony violence, and home invasion in the first degree. All of your charges are felonies except for the battery, felony violence, which is misdemeanor.
That day came almost 3 years later, on March 21st, 2025. The same day jury selection was supposed to start for his murder trial, Jamichael Jones took a deal instead. He pled guilty to 1 count of voluntary manslaughter, and every other charge, including the murder counts, was dropped as part of that deal.
Jamichael Jones was set to begin today, but instead court documents show he made a deal with prosecutors to enter that guilty plea. He was also sentenced to 20 years behind bars.
The sentence was 20 years in prison, with credit for time already served. And since Jones had been sitting in jail without bond since June 7, 2022, that meant almost 3 years came off the top right away. No trial, no jury, and no long fight over what really happened in that bedroom. Just a plea, a sentence, and a case closed. To this day, there have been no public appeals or further proceedings, so as far as the courts are concerned, this story is over. But for a lot of people who loved Trouble, this story never really ended, and even other rappers in the game had their own take on how it all went down. Some of them were not shy about pointing out that the questions didn't stop when the sentence dropped.
You know, I don't really know how people gonna take it, but I think the police should be asking her some more goddamn questions, because somewhere in there, that's negligence. You know what I'm saying? If I do something and I'm negligent, I could be sued. If I do something and I'm negligent, guess what? I can be locked up. You know, right now, if I fire my weapon, even in self-defense, if I got a high-powered gun and I hit you, pow, bullet go through you, pow, hit an innocent person, kill them. Even though it's in self-defense, I don't get off on hitting that innocent person. My negligence will get me locked up.
That's young Jock giving his own perspective on the case, and whether you agree with him or not, his point shows how much this story still weighs on the Atlanta rap community. What happened to Trouble wasn't the first time a young black rapper walked into the wrong situation and lost his life over something that had nothing to do with him.
A good heart to get you killed without even dying. Showing genuine love and turning motherfuckers up without even trying. It'll never be reciprocated because they faked it with no intentions of reaching their hand back to get that same love once they made it. Only way to save your peace is to accept people for who they is and what things are. It'll be what it's gonna be, as Lord's will. You being you, that's enough to get you far. God love.
2 years before this, another rising star from another part of the country went through almost the exact same nightmare, and his name was Pop Smoke. To bring you into this second story, you need to understand who Pop Smoke was, because if you didn't already know him, his rise was one of the fastest in modern rap history.
My name was actually Papa. Let me stop it. I'm Panamanian. So my grandma called me Papa, like, you know what I'm saying, since a kid. But my name on the street when I was a kid was Smoke or Guwap. Like, that was my IG. So the homeboys didn't want to call me Papa, so they called me Pop. And they just mixed the Pop with the Smoke, and they just came.
His government name was Bashar Baraka Jackson, and he was born July 20th, 1999, raised in Canarsie, Brooklyn, New York. His family had roots stretching to Jamaica and Panama, and he grew up in an environment that shaped his sound before he ever picked up a microphone. He got the name Pop Smoke as a kid, and by the time he started rapping seriously in 2018, he was already carrying a stage presence that felt like it belonged to somebody twice his age. He blew up almost overnight. In 2019, his song Welcome to the Party helped introduce Brooklyn drill music to the mainstream, and the beat was heavy. His voice was even heavier, and the whole scene lit up around him. Nicki Minaj hopped on the remix, Skepta hopped on another version, and suddenly every DJ from New York to London was spinning Pop Smoke. His mixtapes, Meet the Woo and Meet the Woo 2, turned him into one of the hottest new artists in the game.
All that designer clothes and your watch ain't real right. Driving around promoting that you was a felon. Niggas be capped, your baby mom, they tell me you was telling.
Make a mountain out of you. Hope chill like I put the chrome barrel to my bone marrow. Run up if you ain't a bow and arrow. Say you run up on me like a phone bill. Spraying lead, playing dead, that's the only time you hold still.
He was working with 50 Cent, collaborating with Travis Scott, and getting shine from every corner of the industry. By February of 2020, Pop Smoke was in Los Angeles getting his debut studio album ready, and he was staying at a rented home in the Hollywood Hills neighborhood. That was a luxury property with an infinity pool, high views of the city, and the kind of setup you would expect for a rising star. Everything about the situation looked like a victory lap for a kid who had come out of Brooklyn with nothing.
But this is where it went wrong, and this is the part that echoes into the Trouble case in a way you would not expect. Pop Smoke and his friend Michael Duradola were posting non-stop on social media from that house. They were posting pictures, they were posting videos, and they were putting up Instagram stories that showed off the gifts he was receiving. The problem was that some of those posts showed the full street address of the rented home in the background. The packaging on the gifts had the address on it, the pictures showed the neighborhood, and the videos showed the view. Anybody scrolling through those stories with bad intentions had every piece of information they needed to find him, and somebody was watching. On February 18, 2020, the day before the murder, Pop Smoke and his friends were sharing content from the home all day long. He posted himself getting a haircut, he posted himself posing by the infinity pool, and he posted the Los Angeles skyline while he was celebrating a moment that should have been the start of a legendary run. Somewhere in New York, at least one group of young men saw those posts, figured out the location, and began planning to rob the house. LAPD detectives later confirmed that the suspects used those social media posts to find the property, and the Hollywood Hills home was also part of what investigators believe to be a pattern of robberies targeting short-term rentals used by musicians. This wasn't a random hit, this was a hunt. Around 4 in the morning on February 19, 2020, that hunt reached its target. 4 masked young men climbed up to the second-story balcony of the rental, pushed through the curtains, and stormed into the home. Pop Smoke was in the shower at the time, and his female companion was in another part of the house. She gave police a chilling account afterward, describing how one of the intruders pointed a gun at her forehead and told her some version of "Shut the fuck up, do you want to die?" These men were not there to talk, they were there for jewelry and money. They burst into the bathroom where Pop Smoke was showering and he came out. What happened next was a mix of cooperation and resistance, because according to a statement one of the attackers later gave to a jailhouse informant, Pop Smoke initially tried to give up his jewelry, but something shifted during the exchange, and there was a struggle, pistol whipping, and then gunshots. The intruders fired 3 rounds from a Beretta 92 handgun, and Pop Smoke was hit and went down. He tried to make it downstairs while his female companion was screaming. She screamed for Michael Duradola to call 911, which he did immediately. But something else happened that most people don't know about. Pop Smoke was on the phone with someone on the East Coast when the attack started, and that person on the other end also called 911 from across the country after hearing what was happening. LAPD arrived at the house roughly 6 minutes later, but by the time they got there, it was already too late. Pop Smoke was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, where doctors tried everything they could, but the wounds were too severe. Bashar Baraka Jackson, the young man who had just started to change the sound of New York, was pronounced dead at the age of 20 years old.
Let's have a look at what's trending right now, and actually tributes to the rapper Pop Smoke are pouring in across social media after he was shot dead in his home during an apparent armed robbery. 20-year-old Pop Smoke, whose real name was Bashar Jackson, was a rising star from New York, and this week got his first US top 10 album.
The LAPD investigation into Pop Smoke's murder started with a very cold trail. The first theories pointed toward the possibility of gang involvement, since Pop Smoke had known ties to the Crips, and detectives had to look into that. But as they dug into what actually went down that morning, the picture started to shift. The first big break came from the same place that got Pop Smoke killed in the first place, and that place was social media. Detectives went through his own posts, saw what he had been showing, and understood exactly how the attackers had located him. So from there, they began chasing digital trails and neighborhood video. Surveillance footage around the area turned out to be gold. Cameras caught an Infiniti vehicle bringing suspects to the scene, and detectives were able to trace the license plate on that car. That plate came back to a man named Corey Walker, who had been stopped in the same vehicle before for something unrelated, and that was the thread that started to unravel the whole thing. On top of that, they had the statement from the female companion who described the masked men, the gun pointed at her head, the words that were said, the pistol whipping, the shots, and the chaos afterward. They also had another huge piece of evidence because one of the suspects, a 15-year-old shooter, later bragged about the whole thing to a cellmate in a recorded jailhouse admission. The kid described the sequence exactly the way the evidence would later confirm, laying out the initial cooperation, then the resistance, then the Beretta 92, then the 3 shots. By July 9, 2020, just 5 months after the murder, 5 suspects were arrested. 2 of them were adults, 3 of them were juveniles, and this is where the case starts to feel like it was ripped straight from the same playbook as the Trouble case. The most important adult defendant was Corey Walker, and he was charged with murder and home invasion robbery. His case moved through the California court system for years, and when the time finally came for a resolution, he pled guilty to voluntary manslaughter and home invasion robbery and was sentenced to 29 years in prison. The juveniles in the case pled to related charges under the juvenile system. Now, stop and really look at that ending for a second. In Georgia, Jamichael Jones pled guilty to voluntary manslaughter for killing Trouble. And in California, Corey Walker pled guilty to voluntary manslaughter for the death of Pop Smoke. That's not an accident. That's a pattern in the way the American criminal justice system treats these cases. And the similarities don't stop at the courthouse either. Look at the evidence in both cases, and it's almost the same story told twice. In the Trouble case, investigators had surveillance video showing Jones's vehicle moving in and out of the apartment complex within 7 minutes. And in the Pop Smoke case, investigators had surveillance video capturing the Infiniti vehicle carrying the suspects to the house. In both situations, the cameras did what cameras do best, and that was giving detectives a starting point that no criminal could talk his way out of. In the Trouble case, investigators quickly determined that Jones and Trouble had no prior connection, so Trouble was just the wrong man in the wrong bed on the wrong night. In the Pop Smoke case, investigators quickly determined that the attackers didn't know Pop Smoke personally either, and they were targeting a location, not a person. Same story, different city. And in both cases, the female companion inside the home became one of the most important witnesses in the whole investigation. In the Trouble case, Rissa Royce gave detectives a full account of what happened, and in the Pop Smoke case, his female companion gave the LAPD a full, detailed statement that laid out every step of the invasion. For Trouble, the wider hip-hop community showed up strong, and Drake, T.I., Killer Mike, Meek Mill, Mike Will Made It, Gucci Mane, and many others mourned him publicly. For Pop Smoke, tributes came from every corner of hip-hop, from 50 Cent to Nicki Minaj to Travis Scott. But love and mourning don't bring a legend back. There are lessons in both of these stories that are hard to ignore. For Pop Smoke, the lesson is about how much power a single social media post can carry, because when you show the world where you rest your head, some of those eyes are not fans, some of them are hunters, and they will use every piece of information you give them to find you. For Trouble, the lesson is a little more complicated because it involves the private choices we make in relationships. When somebody else's name is still on a lease, when a bad breakup has just happened, and when a jealous ex is still moving around unpredictably, the situation can turn deadly in a matter of minutes. Some of his fellow rappers, including Young Jock, later spoke out and suggested that more questions should be asked about the whole situation Trouble walked into, though there is no public record of anybody being charged in connection with that speculation. If you learned something today, drop a comment about which of these cases hit you the hardest. Like the video if you want more breakdowns like this. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this. See you in the next one.